Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to begin the second session dedicated to Asia Pacific and SEA region in particular. I'm going to pass the word to the moderator of the session, Mayank Maturia, Head of Business Development in RAINI from Asia Pacific. So let's start.
Perfect. Thank you so very much. It's been a very good session so far on the day that we dedicate to, as I mentioned during my keynote speech, our beloved buzzing Asia. The first session, we were talking about the macro trends in Asia Pacific, the markets, the commercial dynamics, and the deal-making space. One thing that clearly came out from that session is that given the complexity of the region and the heterogeneity, the socioeconomic factors that we deal with, different product portfolios, different pricing regimens, different reimbursement strategies and coverage, it is indeed extremely important to have the capabilities on the ground to be successful in Asia. Hence, it's indeed my pleasure to be able to moderate this session in which we are going to be deep diving into few markets, very relevant ones that we've chosen. One is Indonesia, one is Thailand, and the other one, Vietnam. We've got leaders in the local space in the pharma world who will be sharing their thoughts. So without any further delay, I would like to invite Jasmine and a brief introduction of her. She's a board of directors. She's the Chief Business Development and Portfolio Officer at Kimia Pharma. Now, Kimia Pharma is Indonesia's largest government-owned pharmaceutical company. Jasmine, before taking this role, she's held leadership positions in Procter & Gamble based in Switzerland. She's a PhD in molecular biology from University of California. So very happy that we have an accomplished, strong, respected female leader in the pharma space in the region to be kickstarting this session. Before I hand it over to her and coming to the fun part, Jasmine was a DJ at school. She pursues baking at home and also semi-professionally. So I'm really, really happy then again to hand it over to the rock star Jasmine.
Thank you very much, Mayank. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Jasmine Carsono. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. Unfortunately, I'm not able to travel to Amsterdam due to travel restrictions. So we'll have to make do with this technology that we have, which I think has worked perfectly. So I'll start my presentation. I'll give you a brief overview of the company, Kimia Pharma, but also within that is how the pharmaceutical market is like in Indonesia. So a brief overview of the company, as Mayank has mentioned, Kimia Pharma is a state-owned enterprise. It is 90% owned by the government and about 10% owned privately. Kimia Pharma has several subsidiaries under the Kimia Pharma holding company, which is we have a trading and distribution arm, we have a pharmacy arm, we have an arm that produces quinone. We're one of the largest producers of quinone for malaria drug, the raw material of malaria drug, and we also have essential oils in that space. We also own part of health insurance, one of the largest health insurance in Indonesia, Mandiri InHealth. We also have a subsidiary in Saudi Arabia. We also have we also have another subsidiary for manufacturing, which is Fapros, that has Lucas Jaya and Marin. We also own clinics and laboratories that I'm going to talk a bit later. And we also have a subsidiary that does API manufacturing. So with that, obviously, we're an integrated business chain. We have a seamless healthcare network that covers all 34 provinces in Indonesia. And as you know, Indonesia is an archipelago that basically we are one of the biggest pharma player in Indonesia. So we, as I mentioned earlier, we have manufacturing of API. We have production facilities across the country. We have a national distribution center. We have retail pharmacies of more than 1,200 across the country. We have clinics and laboratories, about 400 of those, and 70 of the diagnostic laboratories, especially now during COVID, which is really needed. And of course, we are very customer focused. Our production facility, as I mentioned, is across Indonesia. So in addition to the API manufacturing, we have manufacturing for raw materials for essential oils, for quinone. We also have rapid test manufacturing facilities, and then we obviously have manufacturing facilities for pharmaceutical drugs and OTC and medical devices, as well as VMS, vitamin, minerals, and supplements. We have a wide range of products in our portfolio. So we have ethical branded products, which is basically the chunk of what we market in Kimia Pharma. Historically, Kimia Pharma is has always been a generic Me Too company. So our existence have been about 150 years if we count before the independence of before the Republic, but with the Republic we're about 50 years now. We also have, as I mentioned, medical devices, we have OTC and herbals, but we also have a small portion of cosmetic products that we have in our portfolio. During COVID-19, obviously, which is right now, and it's been more than 2 years, can't believe that actually. We have a very big role here because we're a state-owned enterprise. We enjoy actually a lot of government, if you would say, perks. We have we did in-house development for drugs for antiviral, supportive, supplement, rapid test products. We also marketed vaccines. So in this case is one that we imported from China, Sinopharm. But we also have a sister company, Biopharma, which basically manufactures vaccines for COVID-19, Sinovac. We also have medical devices and health goods, so to speak, such as rapid tests, antibody, antigen, etc. We also enjoy the benefits of importation of COVID medication and any COVID medication, many medications supporting COVID. We also have vitamins, food supplements, and obviously drug development collaboration for NCEs, for new chemical entities, which we basically develop with local universities. One of the latest breakthroughs in a way, and this breakthrough might not be a breakthrough for other countries and companies, but it is a breakthrough for Indonesia and for Kimia Pharma, is basically to get the exclusive license for molnupiravir from Medicines Patent Pool. As you know, Medicines Patent Pool is a public health organization, part of the United Nations, and which basically works with MPP to provide sub-licenses to companies to manufacture essential medicines. So in this case, we got the sub-license for molnupiravir through MPP. We are the only company in Southeast Asia to obtain such license to manufacture raw materials as well as finished products. And this will allow us to serve both local and global market demands, especially in Southeast Asia. The other companies that actually receive this kind of license is traditionally always China and India. And there's one in South Korea, but otherwise we're the only one. So this is in a way an accomplishment for Kimia Pharma, but also for Indonesia. So a brief market overview. The market overview in Indonesia is in line with the global market trend, where basically the top 10 therapeutic classes in 2026 global markets, such as anti-rheumatics, multiple sclerosis therapies, antivirals, etc., is the #1 top 10 as part of the top 10 of the therapeutic classes that we are focusing on. Global FMCG market obviously is getting larger and is valued, obviously It's registering a CAGR of 5.4% from 2018 to 2025. And this is also, we've seen this also grow in Indonesia, especially now with people being more at home and having more access to the internet and trying to self-medicate themselves. Consumers, as we see, are also choosing biotech versus small molecules. And we see that it is a global trend, but it's also in Indonesia where people would choose more drugs that have more, like, if you will, more technology, if they would say it. It's more high tech, it seems newer, it seems better, etc. Narcotics is a focus for Kimia Pharma, because we are the only company that has the license to import, manufacture, and distribute narcotics in Indonesia. And the use in narcotics in Indonesia continues to increase every year for medication therapy. And the choice of products in Indonesia is actually less varied compared to other countries. So this is an opportunity that we see that we should explore. Worldwide prescription drug sales and off-patent products outlook. This is also something that in Indonesia we are looking at, and especially for Kimia Pharma, we'd like to see products that are going off patent. We would say, okay, the products going off patent in 2025. So we should start and see how we can develop and produce and manufacture the product in market. So there's obviously several factors here that are key to this global trend. So and the trend in Indonesia. So there's an increase in non-communicable diseases. There's a growth in middle class, and we see that a lot in Indonesia now with the spending power, with the demand across for access to quality and reliable healthcare, and obviously the flow of tourism for medical needs across the region now. Before COVID, actually, people would actually try and seek medical treatments in other countries because they think it's better. So that's kind of a trend that we're seeing right now. There's also people demand is not limited to pharmaceuticals, but extends to the health sector, the lifestyle of products, such as they have more health food, vitamins, etc. And obviously information and via online, and people tend to educate themselves more now and try to find information via the internet. I know sometimes it's not entirely correct what Google says, and sometimes it overwrites the doctor, but that's how it is today. People become more knowledgeable, so to speak, and also more savvy in how they get the information. At the same time, they're trying to also control costs. They want the cost to be lower. They would like to have more products that are more value for money, but still provide the efficacy that they actually would want. And also, obviously, new therapeutic discovery and digital innovation is something that that is there, and it's inevitable. And with new therapeutic discovery, the science understanding allows drugs to be more precise, more suitable, and this is what the consumers would like to see today. The market leading positions across healthcare in Indonesia, Kimia Pharma is actually number 3 here, as you can see. This data came in just a few days ago, so this is new. Dexa Medica and Sanbe are both the big players in Indonesia, and Kalbe actually as well, that dropped to number 4. We are the number 1 player in pharmacy, so there is a huge total revenue for pharmacies, 16.4 trillion rupiah in 2020, and Kimia Pharma has a 32% share there. And in terms of laboratories, there's a lot of small players, but the largest player is Prodia, and then there's Kimia Pharma. So government support and partnerships in Indonesia, basically there's a strong link to to government and other state-owned enterprise that grants a strong business platform. And even if you are a private company, you can still gain access to these enterprises, to the state-owned enterprises, and it provides actually a significant upside to the non-government private sector market, as I mentioned. So there are several things that you can benefit here. Is basically the license and to distribute medicines, especially the COVID-19 products, potential to expand business model through managed services, and also to expand distribution and network reach. Several examples of collaboration to drive business growth. For example, there are joint venture opportunities where and I'm giving Kimia Pharma's examples here, but I think you can draw your own, where joint venture, for example, we have a joint venture with a Korean company, South Korea, called Sungwon Pharmacopoeia for our API facility, where we basically get the technology and the know-how from Sungwon. They teach us that, they transfer the technology to us, and we manufacture that in Indonesia. And I will tell you a bit why we need this, why this is important to manufacture our own raw material. There are also partnership opportunities. And in this example is still on the API, but partnership opportunities with other SOEs. So for example, in manufacturing paracetamol, we have worked with another state-owned enterprise, Pertamina, which is basically our oil company. And so Pertamina produces benzene, and from benzene we get para-aminophenol, and that is the one of the chemicals to manufacture paracetamol. So that's another partnership opportunity that can be had. The other one is obviously partnerships with hospitals and with other healthcare companies to basically have synergies. And so either we would work with the hospitals to provide the clinics, to provide services, the medications, etc. So I've mentioned this previously, where synergies with the hospital and other state-owned enterprises. Here, there's also that opportunity to have a synergy with, for example, with the travel industry and airports, for the clinics and laboratory services to sell vitamins, minerals, where travelers can actually easily access that, and into other It's because by 2024, so there's a government regulation in Indonesia that by 2024, we're actually expected to, and we meaning in Indonesia, expected to basically reduce imports by about 20-25%. Right now, the imports for API in Indonesia in general is about 90%. That's actually quite high, and considering China, it is very difficult to produce API in the country. In addition to that, the API produced locally tends to be more expensive because we have to get the raw material for the API imported. So as a result, a lot of pharmaceutical industries would actually get their APIs from abroad, which from a cost standpoint is much better. So so there is a roadmap that for Kimia Pharma that we're trying to do to basically get to this 21% reduction of import by 2024. So this is what the plan is. However, at the same time, there is also a government regulation that gives benefits if the local content, so total local content of your product is more than 55%. And that includes from your manufacturing, from your API, the R&D, packaging, etc. So in order for companies to benefit from that, indeed, local supply of raw materials is important. So coming to the end of my presentation, so there are challenges in Indonesia that I think for all of the audiences here is important to understand. One is that imports of medicinal products can only be done up to 2 years. And when I say medicinal products here, is mostly ethical and generic products. So unless your product is an essential medicine, unless it's a technology that cannot be produced yet in Indonesia, you cannot import your product. If you do import, it's not more than 2 years. For example, if you would still like to import your product would or you still would like to market your product, the product will need to be produced locally. So within that 2 years, you need to set up the manufacturing in Indonesia and start to produce the product locally. OTC products, because of their nature, it's not essential, and typically the technology definitely can be done in Indonesia locally, cannot be imported. However, products like VMS and medical devices may still be imported under certain restrictions, and that really depends on the product, the ingredient, the type, etc. And patent requirements apply, meaning that if a product is still patented, we cannot sell it in Indonesia. We cannot go over that patent. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. I would like to say terima kasih. That is thank you in Indonesian. So I hope you benefit from this, and I would be happy to take any questions later.
Terima kasih to you, Jasmine. Thank you so much for this very insightful presentation. And I think for a country like Indonesia, local nuances around manufacturing, regulatory, commercialization, your example about the JV, everything is so much relevant. What I would like to request is to all of the participants, if they can just either send their questions via the chat box or hold on. And at the end of the presentation of all of the 3 speakers, we are going to have a Q&A session. For any question that goes into the chat box, we just make sure that it is still addressed verbally at the end of the session. Thanks again, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll now move on to our second speaker, who's Elko. He's the CEO of Eurodrug, that has a very sizable business and focus for Thailand. Elko has strong finance background. He's held multiple CFO roles in the past. He has a degree in economics from the University of Amsterdam. Coming to the fun part, he's an avid skier. I don't know, Elko, if I should be thanking you for joining this session or I should be jealous, because he is taking this call sitting in the beautiful Alps right now in Austria, where he's out for a skiing trip. So with that said, Elko, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Let me start by sharing my screen so you can all see the presentation. Okay, good morning, everybody. As the introduction said, my name is Elko Boersma. I'm the CEO of Eurodrug Laboratories. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to present Eurodrug and our Asian Pacific presence at PharmaSynergy with a special focus on Thailand. In this presentation, I will give you a brief overview of the Thai economy and its developments, the pharma market, its dynamics, and especially during COVID, of course, and give you an outlook for 2022 and beyond. And the second part of this presentation will be an introduction of Eurodrug Laboratories. We've been active in Asia Pacific for almost 40 years, and how we can help you to accelerate your growth in Asia Pacific through our wide range of services. So first off, a macroeconomic outview of 2022, some global trends, which of course also affect Thailand. The current inflation will turn to stagflation, which is a situation where you have high inflation and high unemployment that usually leads to slowing demand. So supply chain challenges leading to higher cost of logistics and transportation. Energy costs higher due to shortage of supply. We already see that, which then leads to rising cost of living. There will be a big impact for monetary policy. There has been a very high advance of quantitative easing, especially by the US. That will be reduced to, let's say, offset the effects of the increased inflation. So QE tapering will take effect. We already see rising of interest in the first quarter of this year. And of course, the coronavirus and its new variants, vaccines, will be the greatest challenge for developing countries to get them in place. And new variants may come up, disrupt economies. Taking a look at the Thai pharmaceutical market, this is an overview of Krungsri Bank, which is the 5th largest bank in Thailand. If we look at the domestic area, for 2021, the GDP was about 2.5% growth, which is nice. Well, for this year and next year, it's foreseen to be 3.5% growth. So that's nice. Drivers for this growth is the rising concern of the Thais of their personal health and wellness, of course, which will increase spending. The aging of the Thai society. In many societies, they get older, and of course, the associated cost of healthcare will increase. The broad coverage of the universal health coverage scheme. That's kind of a social scheme in Thailand in effect since 2002. It's a medical private insurance, and about 70% of the Thais are enrolled in this scheme. So increased funds of this will have its effect on the domestic market. And of course, very important for the Thai market is the return of the foreign patients to the Thai hospitals. Some competition as well in the industry. There will be greater imports of low-cost products, especially from China and India. Investments in Thai-based production facilities. New overseas players come in, produced generics for the Thai market, but also exports. And I think it's important to note that out of the Thai manufacturing volume, roughly 90% is consumed within Thailand. So the export normally is quite limited. The rising cost due to the PICS GMP standards. Thailand has adhered to that a couple of years ago. Higher quality usually also means higher cost. And the force of the CPTPP, that's the Trans-Pacific Partnership with 11 partners. China may add to this partnership, which of course changes the playing field in terms of competition. Taking a look at the Thai economy prepared by the Bank of Thailand. Let me zoom in a bit on these numbers, just to give you an overview of the performance of Thai economy. So the GDP growth, according to the Bank of Thailand for 2022, around 4%. Inflation relatively low. If you look at the headline inflation, which is the inflation as published as a price index, 1.4%. And if we compensate that for fluctuating elements like energy and go to the core inflation, it's only 0.3%. So that's really good. The Bank of Thailand has made a survey amongst entrepreneurs, what they see about the near future and the developments. So out of the people joining, 61%, there's going to be a contraction due to weakening purchasing power. Also real estate and construction income will reduce. 65% of them feel that because of weakening purchasing power and also constraints in terms of credit standards. Manufacturing income, 8% feel that will rise, although there is the factory workers being ill from COVID, minimizing that. And services income, also 29% feel is going to go down because of the travel restrictions on the patients coming in. If we look at their confidence in the economy, 36% feel that they are optimistic and that's going to increase in the next 12 months because of the increased number of vaccinated people. Some challenges will be faced. 52% feel that there will be challenges because of the weakened domestic demand, which is a very strong influence, of course. Cost of doing business, 58% feel is going to go up because of the mentioned raw material prices going up, logistics, but also the direct costs of COVID. And 70% in terms of the labor market said that they have not hired anybody and have decided to pay overtime instead of hiring people. Overall, Thai economy is strong. taking a look at the Thai economy compared to the other countries in the Asian region, if we look at the GDP growth, as mentioned, for Thailand, this is an overview of Kasikorn Bank, which is the former Thai Farmers Bank, large bank in Thailand. You see here that there's a 4% growth for Thailand compared to 5.7% on average in all the Asian countries. So that's very nice. Highest in this respect is India with 9.3%. If we take a look at the inflation compared to the other Asian countries, we see here that Thailand is very low, 1.2%, as mentioned before. The average for the Asian countries, which is all excluding Japan, is 2.5%. So they are very, very low, lowest in the region, which is strong. And again, here, India is highest with 5.4%. Moving to the Thai pharmaceutical market. This is an overview prepared by IQVIA. They estimated that between 2020 and 2025, the overall Thai market will grow to 194 billion Thai baht, or 3.4% in these years. 194 billion baht is roughly 5.4 billion US dollars. Key drivers for this growth is, as mentioned, the UCS, and constraints, of course, again, the COVID-19 pandemic. Zooming in a bit on the Thai pharma market. So total market currently is around 185 billion baht. The prescription market, 150 billion baht, and OTC around 35. If we look at the performance of the various elements in the Thai market, year-to-date June of last year compared to a year earlier, year-to-date June, it was 92.2 billion baht sales. The division of that is 70% in governmental hospitals, 11% private hospitals, and the remaining part, 19%, is generated by pharmacies. If you look at the development here, you see in the governmental hospitals, there was a growth of 3%. Out of the product portfolio, you see that 55% of products is original, with 8% growth, 45% generic, with a decline of 2%. In the private hospital area, 68% is original products and 32% generic, overall decline of 7%. The pharmacy sector grew by 2%. There's a 50-50 roughly share between original products and generic products. Zooming in a bit on, let's say, the key players in the market, the same area. This is moving annual target second quarter 2021. Two overviews, one with the list price, the other with the weight average price. Weight average price on average roughly 65% of list price. What you see here is that the biggest player in the Thai market is Novartis, followed by GSK. If we look at the top 5 of players, what you notice is that you see that out of the 5, there's only one local player in third place, Siam. And if we look at the weight average price overview, there is on the 4th place GPO. The rest is all multinational companies. GPO is the governmental pharmaceutical organization, which is a state-owned manufacturing and sales organization that manufactures pharmaceutical products exclusively for the Thai market, but with some small exports too. An overview of the top 20 companies. You see for the same period, second quarter 2021, that some companies have increased, like Novartis and like Boehringer Ingelheim. Teva was not doing very well in the same period, but I think what's most important to know that out of these 20 companies, there's only 2 local players. One is GPO, the manufacturing company as mentioned before, and Berlin Pharma. Taking a look at market trends, this is a breakdown of the total market and then a split between drugstore and hospital. If we compare 2020 to 19, overall there was a 6% growth, but because of COVID, a 3% contraction for 2021 overall. Looking at the hospitals, which is 70% of the market, comparing 20 to 19, 8% growth, and also contraction of 2% in hospitals and drugstores. There was a contraction in 2020 compared to 19, and even 6% in 2021. Taking a look at the same period, but now a division between the multinationals and local, what we've seen is that in the top 20, there's only 2 local companies. In terms of manufacturers, taking a look at the total market, the division is that 76% is multinational, 24 local. In the hospital sales, 77% multinational, 23% local. And in drugstores, there's a little bit more local availability, 32% versus 68% of multinational companies. Same period, same turnover, but now a breakdown between what's happening in Bangkok and upcountry. The overall population in Thailand is 70 million of people, of which 10 million is living in Bangkok. Let's say that's the officially registered. There's probably more. If we take a division in that total market, 38% is generated in Bangkok, 62% upcountry. If we take a look at the hospital market, 39% generated in Bangkok and 61% upcountry. And in drugstores, you can see that they, let's say, are stronger in the upcountry area, 65% versus 35% in Bangkok. Growth, or let's say decline, in this period of COVID, what you see is that the volume change is the biggest driver of the contraction of the market. Very little price change, also very little new products launched or line extensions, basically same portfolio, and the biggest impact, and the reason is just lower volumes because of COVID restrictions. An overview of the most important therapeutic classes and their main products. So the top 5, just as an overview. First and biggest is cholesterol and triglycerides. By far biggest therapeutic class. Leading product is Clovas of Millimed, which by the way is a local company. Second one is anti-epileptics. Leading product Keppra of UCB. Third is calcium antagonists, so cardiovascular. Biggest product Mariplot of Chiesi. Fourth therapeutic class is the monoclonal antibodies. Oncology, leading product is Avastin by Roche. Moving on to an overview of all the therapeutic classes in terms of value and growth. What you can see is that most classes are down, especially anti-infectives, respiratory, hospital solutions, and parasitology. There is some growth in hormones and in diagnostic agents, but overall you see a decline in the most important therapeutic classes. Taking a look to the share between government and private, what you see is that the government share is growing from 83 to 86% because of COVID in the last year. Leading products in the hospitals, to give you an idea of what's going on there. Mariplot, which was also leading in the therapeutic class by Chiesi. Second product, Mapenem, antibiotic of Siam, which is a local product. Third one, Clovas, was also leading in therapeutic class by Chiesi. Fourth, Seretide of GSK. And fifth product, Intaxel, oncology product from Fresenius Kabi. As you can see, 4 out of 5 are multinational companies. Taking a look at the top 5 in the drugstores, very different view. Top 1 product is Ensure of Abbott, class other nutritions. Second product, Gaviscon, heartburn by Benckiser. Third product is Yasmin, OBGY product from Bayer. Fourth, Mercilon, Organon, OBGY as well. And fifth, Acoxia of MSD and NSAID. Total market drugstore, as mentioned, 34 billion Thai baht. So by that, the overview of, let's say, the dynamics of the Thai pharma market. Now I want to move over to a little bit over Jurjik and Pacific Healthcare. Pacific Healthcare has been active in Thailand for 60 years, and Jurjik, as mentioned, almost 40 years with our dedicated sales forces in Thailand. We are established as Jurjik in 1984, Pacific Healthcare in 1962, and both companies became part of Lycan Group in 2017, which is also the year I became CEO of Euroject Group. We have a wide range of services: marketing, sales, distribution, regulatory services, especially in emerging countries. We cover more than 31 countries, Asia Pacific, the CS countries, and Latin America. And the whole group employs roughly 900 people, and Lycan Group is your main one-stop shop to enter into emerging countries. A little bit of where we are located with our own affiliates and offices. Pacific Healthcare on the left is headquartered in Bangkok and has offices in Myanmar, Vietnam, and Philippines. Euroject Laboratories, our head office is in Netherlands. We're a Dutch company. Head office in The Hague, where I'm located. Then we have an office in Hong Kong coordinating our Asian activities, and in Malaysia. Our CS activities are coordinated from Georgia, and our LATAM activities with offices in Mexico and Colombia. Our mission is to provide high quality, innovative, branded generic pharmaceutical products from European R&D for patients and doctors in the areas mentioned. And our vision is to be the preferred pharmaceutical company for patients and doctors in emerging markets. Presence in 31 countries. Later on, I will give you an overview. We have more than 30 years experience, almost 40 now, and more than 400 employees within the Euroject Group. A little bit on the countries where we are active. You see the most of the countries are in Asia Pacific: Hong Kong, South Korea, India, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, of course, Vietnam, Laos, and Myanmar. We're starting our activities now in Indonesia, Cambodia, and South Africa. So we're still actively looking for partners, for instance, in Indonesia. Latin America, offices in Colombia, Mexico, and operations through partners in Bolivia, Argentina, Central America, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, and Peru. And our CS countries, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Hungary, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, starting up in Moldova and Ukraine. And let me say from this point that our hearts go out to the people living in Ukraine with the terrible events going on there. So we really pray that things turn out well shortly. And of course, Kazakhstan as our last country. An overview of what we've been doing in the last 40 years. We have partnerships with for product development. Most companies are from Europe. Ferrer, Exceltis, and Almirall, all leading pharmaceutical companies from Spain. Italy also very strong. We have partnerships with Chiesi, Baldacci, and Dompe, and strong research alliances for many years with King's College in London, Clinic in Barcelona, and the Erasmus University Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And briefly an overview of our key therapeutic areas where we focus on. Number one, respiratory disorders. That is, at least according to the budget 2022, 44% of our turnover. Gastroenterology, 30%. Pediatrics, 9%, but has an overlap with respiratory because we have some syrup in that field. And OBGY, 12%. Then the remaining percentage is in other elements like metabolic syndrome and pain management. Brief overview of our product portfolio to end the presentation. 12 innovative delivery systems, 7 original compounds in the portfolio, more than 250 registered trademarks worldwide. We have 3 product patents still active, and currently 5 products in the pipeline. And with that, I came to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and ready to take your questions later on. Thank you very much.
Thanks indeed, Elko. I think it was a very, very comprehensive, in-depth overview of the different channels, geographical split in Thailand, and the recent trends. And of course, great to learn more about Euroject. I'm sure that there are many partners who would like to explore collaborations such as Minarini with you. So hope to carry on the discussion.
Hope so. Thank you.
Absolutely. And hope to carry on with the discussions later on after this session when the networking sessions go ahead as well. I'm seeing that there have been few questions on Indonesia that have been directed to Jasmine. Appreciate those questions. Please keep them going. And then based on Elko's presentation, any questions that you have, please feel free then again to include them in the chat group. With this, I will hand over to our final speaker of the session, who's Sudeshna. Sudeshna Pan is the head of BD for Relife, as we call RV. It's a Vietnam headquartered company. It's more of a regional player with its strong footprint in Vietnam and also a few other very relevant markets in the Southeast Asia region. Sudeshna has been associated with top MNCs such as Lilly, Novartis, Fresenius Kabi, and others in his previous careers. And his scope has been beyond BD and also leading very successful new product launches. He's a PhD, so Dr. Sudeshna, in health economics. Coming to the fun part, while Sudeshna is a marathon runner on the earth, it seems like his son is getting ready to fly in outer space. He recently got through a very reputed school for an aerospace program, and many congratulations to you for that, Sudeshna. Hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mayank. Very good evening to everybody. Let me first share my screen. Thanks. Okay. Once again, very good evening to all of you. I'm Sudeshna Pan, and I am looking after the business development aspects of Relief Healthcare. I will talk about Relief later on, but today's topic, what we are discussing, is more about partnering in Asia Pacific, and I am pleased to talk about the partnering opportunities in Vietnam. So I will start with a little bit understanding of the Vietnam market, and I have picked up most of my points which are more relevant to the partnering business and partnering aspects, because as I understand, most of our audience today are more interested to know how they can partner with companies and the countries they're interested in to get into this market. So let me talk about Vietnam. Just to understand a little bit about the Vietnam pharmaceutical market, I can say that Vietnam pharmaceutical market has been spurred by an outstanding economic growth. Pre-COVID era, which is about 2019, the market stood about $6 billion US, and it has been grown almost like 10% per annum. Even during the COVID time of the last 2 years, from 2020 to 2021, Vietnam pharmaceutical market has actually impressed everybody with a fabulous growth of 5% each year. Today, in 2021 end, it stands about $6.5 billion US. So from this brief understanding, we can see that Vietnam pharmaceutical market is both a large as well as a high growth market. Okay, let us understand a little bit about what made Vietnam pharmaceutical market what it is today. The market growth drivers. To start with, Vietnam actually kept healthcare of its public on its very high priority. It is evident from the very high allocation of 7% of the GDP, which is almost like $20 billion US for the healthcare expenditure, which is amongst the highest in the region. Today, almost like 90% of the population is protected by the National Healthcare Insurance Scheme. And this high spend on improvement of the healthcare infrastructure, on the upgradation of the public healthcare is continuously going on. And in addition, the growth is supported by the private insurance players and the entry of private hospitals in the country. Okay, some of the key market shaping forces of Vietnam pharmaceutical market, which I would like to highlight today. We have to understand this also because these are some of the forces which are currently shaping the industry. First is that the price negotiation, which is basically started a few years back, to be precise, 2019. Government has started the negotiation on the off-patent originators or innovator products. So this has actually resulted in the price reduction. This started with the oncology segment, then the ARVs, and now it is expected that it is going to expand to all therapeutic areas of the medicine products. Secondly is that the government is actually undergoing centralized tenders, and this has also resulted in a very high pressure of the price cuts. There is also an capping of the innovator products uses across the hospitals, whether it is a top tier hospital or at the provincial hospitals. So this is also impacting the uses of the innovator products. Now, you may see that these are some of the main forces which are shaping the pharmaceutical industry. But all these three mentioned points are impacting the business of the originators or the innovators product. Please understand that this also has an opportunity for the partner business or the generic business, because this opens up an opportunity for expanding the generics across the world to enter into Vietnam. Okay, there are some very unique classifications of generics or the generic products in Vietnam. And this kind of uniqueness probably is seen nowhere in this world. And I would like to highlight here today, which makes challenges as well as opportunities for many of the partnering companies they are wishing to enter into Vietnam. So there are 5 groups which are basically classified as generics in the tendering system of Vietnam. The group 1 is the drugs which are manufactured in the SRA countries, that means the stringent regulatory authorities. So this basically are the European manufacturers, the other stringent countries manufacturers like UK, USA, Canada, Japan, Australia. The second group is called as the drugs which are manufactured outside the SRA countries, but these have the approvals of SRA countries. So it means that a company originating from, say, India has an approval of US FDA. So they will come under group 2. The group 3 are the drugs which are manufactured in Vietnam and approval of the DAV or the MOH of Vietnam. Group 4 is the drugs which are having bioequivalence with the reference product and approved by MOH. And the group 5 is all other products originating from rest of the countries which do not feature in group 1 to 4. So the purpose of me presenting this unique classification is that this has some challenges for some of the companies originating from any particular country, but also has an opportunity for many companies who are coming from SRA countries in particular, like in Group 1. Most of our partners who are listening to this this program, this event, who are from the European countries wish to enter into Vietnam, they would be very happy to see that there is a particular group which is made for them, and it is a great opportunity for the companies from Europe. Okay. So I will like to just highlight about the marketing, the partnering opportunities in the Vietnam pharmaceutical market. The market conditions I have listed here are the ones which we have just discussed, which are the growth drivers and the forces which are shaping currently at this time. If you see that the improvement in the healthcare infrastructure is actually a favoring opportunity for partnering business. Yes, it is. Expansion of social health insurance also is a favorable opportunity for partnering business. And the growth that we have been seeing in the private sector, the expansion of price negotiation, centralized tender, and the caps on the uses of innovator. These three market forces that we have discussed are favorable for the partnering opportunities, which will actually grow the generic business. Okay, some of the points which I would like to point out here is that there are some market conditions which are actually made the Vietnam pharmaceutical market to partner with some local companies. And the main reasons are that there is a strong language barrier in Vietnam. So to communicate with most of the key stakeholders, you need to partner with some local company. Another point is that there is a very unclear and continuously changing regulations that happens in Vietnam. So for that understanding, you need to have a local partner. The Ministry of Health or the Department of Drug Administration of Vietnam is very closed, and it is difficult to approach for the foreign companies. So there also you need to have a partnering requirement. The tendering process is complicated, as you have seen that there are 5 generic classes. So this is complicated and of course difficult for the new entrant or the foreign players to manage this tendering process. The same is also that there is a very high level of difficulty to approach the key opinion leaders, the stakeholders who are managing the drug business or the business of pharmaceutical. So there also you need to have a local partner to manage this well for you. So keeping all this in mind, we present RV Group, which is Relief Healthcare Vietnam, as one of the most reliable partner for the companies who wish to enter into Vietnam. Just a brief introduction about the company and what makes us a reliable partner. RV Group was founded in Singapore in 2010, so it's about a 10-year-old company. But in a very short time, RV Group is one of the leading players, particularly in the marketing and distribution in ASEAN region. In addition, we have state-of-art manufacturing facilities now in India, Myanmar, and Vietnam. In addition, there is also an R&D center in India. So we are basically a company which is strong in Vietnam, and in addition, some other countries like Myanmar, India, Cambodia, Philippines, Kazakh. We have our expertise in manufacturing, as I mentioned, that we have manufacturing facilities in Myanmar, India, Vietnam. In Vietnam, we have 2 facilities. We support R&D and regulatory. And we are marketing partners for finished drug formulations for many companies. Just to mention few of them, we represent Viatris, few products of Novartis, entire range of Lupin, Glenmark, Cipla, and many more. So just to summarize what RV Group Vietnam can offer to our partners who want to enter into Vietnam is that we are strong in imported generics and OTC segment. We have a strong network and relationship with Ministry of Health, government, tender committee, national insurance. We have a very large team that takes care of sales and marketing to create the demand. This does not include our manforce who are engaged in the manufacturing facility. We are one of the first companies to get several approvals in Vietnam. Just to name some of them, we got the first trastuzumab in Vietnam, the entire hepatitis C range. So this speaks about our capability in registering new molecules. And as I mentioned, we have 2 manufacturing facilities in Vietnam. So some of the partners who would like to explore some contract manufacturing options can also be explored. So RV Group Vietnam is one of your most reliable partner. Either it could be for the sales, marketing, distribution for your finished products originating from any part of the world, or some of the options can be explored for contract manufacturing in Vietnam. So this ends my presentation, and I am open to take up some questions if you have in the later part.
We'll go in the order. So we'll start with Jasmine here. And Jasmine, I understand that you've already addressed a few of the questions, but I think in the broader interest of all of the participants, as everyone may not be looking at the chat box. So slightly repetitive, and thanks for the effort. I'll actually go ahead with the second question first, because I think it's a broader topic. The question is whether in Indonesia, one can only license out, if someone is only licensing out essential products, for example, products in oncology or specialty care. And if after 2 years of getting the MA, the manufacturing of this product has to be done locally. Jasmine, my request is that if you can please address this question both for the products that fall purely in the innovative category, as in what triggers the local manufacturing, and the second part, or the second bucket will be when these products are already genericized, or even if they're not genericized, they're available in the Indonesia market and manufactured in Indonesia in one way or the other. Over to you, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayank. So basically, products can be imported into Indonesia. As I mentioned, if they're essential, we don't have the technology, etc. If they're innovator products and they're off patent, we definitely can import those products. Now, it will trigger a local manufacturing if, for example, after 2 years, we are still interested to sell the product in the country. If the product is a generic product, we cannot import, because especially if the generic product is already in the market. So the molecule should not be in the market yet. If it's a new technology for that molecule, possibly we can still import under certain restrictions. But then if we want to continue to market that after 2 years, we would need to do local production.
I will just have a follow-up on this, Jasmine, and correct my ignorance here. So when it comes to the enforceability of patents, do we really see that, locally manufactured products before the expiry of the patents are still prevalent in Indonesia generally?
No, so the government has basically done a bit of a restriction on that. So if the product is still under patent, we cannot manufacture that. We only can do that after it's out of patent. So a lot of companies actually see which products are coming off patent soon, for example, in the next 2 years, and then they start manufacturing. One of the things that generic companies like us, like what we're trying to do is become the first Me Too. So there is an innovator product out there and become the first company that does a Me Too product, either in the country or, or globally or in the region.
Thank you. Thank you. This is extremely helpful to know, and it also reflects the overall maturity in Indonesia that we are witnessing.
That's right. That's right.
Second question, Jasmine, is around OTC and VMS, and VMS products falling in OTC category or not. So I think a little bit of download from your end conceptually will be helpful.
Yes, thank you. And I'm sorry if I wasn't clear in my presentation. So when I say VMS, is actually VMS under the food supplement category. If it's a VMS under OTC, it will really depend whether or not we can import, depending on the ingredient. If it's a novel ingredient, if it's a new clinical study, it is a new indication, for example, we might still be able to import. However, if it's a VMS OTC that, of a vitamin B, for example, most likely we won't be able to import that and we'll have to produce locally.
Thanks again. Very, very clear.
Thank you.
There's another question for you, and I find this very intriguing and interesting one. It'll be a great personal learning for me as well. I'll break this question up in two parts. The first is the relative ease of setting up a local entity. So that is one. And given the fact that you constantly work with the government, I think you'll be the best positioned to answer. And the second bucket later on that we would request you to address is the overall field force sizes that you are expecting in a hospital product, which will also then help us understand something similar to what Elko mentioned, Bangkok and upcountry. So if you're talking about Jakarta area and beyond in terms of the size of the market or the access for specialty care oncology products, if you will.
All right. Thank you very much. So how easy it is to set up local entity. If you're a pharmacy, if you want to set up, if you want to sell pharmaceutical products in Indonesia, obviously you would need a license, you would need an importation license in Indonesia, and you would need a registration. In order for you to get that registration, the company that registers would have to be a local company. So for example, if you're a company in India, and you would like to directly import into Indonesia, you would need to you cannot register directly with the Indonesian Board of Health. You have to register to a local company. Now that local company would have to hold a pharmaceutical license. So it cannot just be a distributor. It has to be a distributor that holds a pharmaceutical license in order for you to import. So that's one. Now you can obviously set up a local entity here, but obviously then with all that, there's all the legalities of having ensuring you have all the right organization there, you have the SOPs in place, etc. So there is, I would have to say, it's not difficult, but you need to make sure you have all the legalities in order for you to set up a local entity. The size of hospital, like the size of market, for example, in Jakarta. So Jakarta itself is about 11 million people. People who live in, it's more of the Jakarta, the broader area. If we include like all of the periphery, it's even more. Now, a lot of people that work in Jakarta actually don't live in Jakarta, they live outside of Jakarta. Now, in setting up like the hospital size, etc., there's a lot of hospitals, I would have to say. I came back from Switzerland about 6 months ago. I was quite surprised with the amount of hospitals. Now, there are smaller hospitals in like the, how do you call it? in like the local area. So like the local area where you live, there might be one hospital. It might just be a hospital for mom and child, and there might be a hospital like more of a general, you know, for GPs and stuff. So there might be something like that. But then like the bigger hospitals, there are quite a few, and there are a lot of privately owned hospitals in the periphery, in the suburbs, that are very modern, that are very big and very huge. And a lot of people now from within Jakarta actually goes to those hospitals because of the facilities that they get. So I think it's more in terms of how modern and how up to the technology you are to actually get the patients to come to you, versus having, you know, where you are located and, you know, in the city, because in the city you obviously cannot get space anymore. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I'll just have a little bit of follow-up, and that'll help address the question, I think, a little bit more comprehensively. So if someone or if an organization is thinking of launching a hospital product, would you actually focus on Jakarta and Greater Jakarta area, which would then mean that, you know, you may have a relatively smaller size of the field force, or would you rather want to go further expanded into certain bigger islands as well?
Okay, all right. Hospital products. Sorry, I understood hospital. Okay, so for
it was still useful to know, so thank you.
For hospital products, definitely it would be in Jakarta. I think Jakarta, it has the biggest, you know, the biggest market, cash outlay, everything. I think Jakarta would be one, and then maybe the other major cities in Indonesia, for example, like in Surabaya, which is in East Java, or in other bigger or like in Bali, for example, which is also another big island. So I would actually recommend doing it in Jakarta first as your test market, so to speak. And people anyway get treatment in Jakarta.
Extremely helpful to know. And if we were to just extend this whole concept to Thailand as well, Elko, what would your insight be if the same question was to put for Thailand, especially when it comes to launching a hospital product in Thailand? Would it be Bangkok focused? Because we did see that in quite a few of the channels, Bangkok still accounts for close to 50% of the market. Or would you rather have a strategy that is covering 2 or 3 other cities as well, as Jasmine has laid out for Indo?
No, I would suggest to start with Bangkok for the same reasons.
So this is very interesting to know that, 2 very big markets certainly growing and going in the right direction when it comes to reimbursement. If there is a hospital product that has some innovative angle to it, then you don't really have to go that broad, that big, and then, kind of build it from there. Are they also, because in certain markets, co-promotions are rather easier to implement based on sub-geographies as well, as we see in China from time to time. We actually see that in Korea within Seoul as well. And, you can pretty much segregate across different channels. Is this something, Elko, that you see in Thailand as well?
Sorry, can you please repeat the question?
Sure. So is co-promotion of the same brand something that you pursue, wherein certain companies just focus on Bangkok and then, other provinces can be given out, or because of any regulatory limitations, pricing, etc., that becomes a challenge?
No, I would say co-promotion is very well possible. In all kinds of separations. So yes, I would say for Thailand, for the Thai market, that is an option. Yeah.
Thank you. There's one question, Elko, which is addressed to you. If Eurodrug has innovative products, would Eurodrug be open to licensing out these products to other countries in Asia Pacific, please?
Yes, of course. We have our own operations, but also we work with partners. So for countries where we are either not present, or there is still some products left in the portfolio, we're always open to team up. So reach out and we'll set up a meeting and see if there's anything to be done. For sure.
Well, I guess Minarini is waiting list number 1 since I asked you this after your presentation.
Happy to talk to them.
Jokes aside, this is the beauty of forums like the PharmaSynergy, where organizations, companies get to talk to partners and then choose the right ones based on merit. Thanks, Elko.
Very well.
So thank you. Coming to you, there's a specific, very specific question about the registration procedure for a generic product manufactured in Group 1. I think it'll be great if you could also share your thoughts when it comes to the differences between Group 1, 2, 3, and 4, not just in terms of pricing, but also in terms of the regulatory pathway and approval timelines, please.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. Technically or officially, DAV or Ministry of Health do not differentiate or discriminate from the country of origin products, whether it is Group 1 or Group 5 or in between. As far as Group 1 companies, product companies, what they can do is that they can reduce the response time. If they have a good, strong dossier, the response time, which they get normally 1 to 2 months to reply, if they can reply within few days, you can actually save those times, those number of days, and that can actually fasten up the registration process. This is number one. Another thing is that you said that is there any way to fasten up the registration for Group 1, and it applies for anybody, any other companies also in any group, is that a strong follow-up is required between the company, the local company in particular, with the expert who is managing that particular dossier or the product registration. So a strong follow-up rapport with the expert, the person who is handling that particular dossier, also helps in reducing the time of the registration. So these two things are to be taken care on case-to-case basis. Is not particularly explained or written or cannot be found on any kind of black and white, but it can be very well done.
Very clear. Thank you so very much. Christina, if we don't have any further questions from the audience, and given the fact that we are a little bit over when it comes to time, possibly we can wrap up this session. And thank you, everyone. I have to say that Jasmine, Sudeshna, and Elko, I've been in Singapore for the last 7 years and seem to think that I know about the markets in Southeast Asia, but all of these local insights have been personally very educative to me. And I'm sure that a lot of the audiences feel the same way. So thanks again for all of your effort, all the participation. And as Christina has mentioned, people may reach out to you separately as well. So please encourage and address their questions as much as you can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mang.
Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.